Hello and a very warm welcome to all of you joining us from across the globe. I'm Veena Gowda, your host for today. Thank you for joining us today for this webinar on why is consumer analytics not working for you. Let me first introduce you to our speakers. Jaykant Chidambaram, Practice Head for Analytics at Aspire Systems with over a decade's expertise.
Hello everyone. Thanks for taking time and joining us today for this webinar. Hope you find this session interesting.
Thanks, Jaykant. And we have Adarsh Nellika, Principal Solutions Consultant, Analytics Practice at Aspire Systems.
Hello everyone. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, Adarsh. So, let's have a quick look into the current scenario in consumer analytics, followed by we'll try understanding consumer life cycle analytics, and thereafter personalized recommendations and how it affects your business. Also, we can have a look into influencing product launches, how buyer propensity varies, and what can be done about it. Finally, we'll be also having a look into real-time recommendations, which is the latest in business practices. And now I'll hand it over to Jaykant, who will take it forward from here.
Thanks, Veena. Before we get started, I just wanted to run some stats. So, as you can see on the screen, one of the McKinsey report states that consumer analytics generates 126% profit improvement over competitors that don't have a similar solution. Another one from Gartner states that by 2018, greater than 50% of the organizations will redirect their investments to customer experience innovations. And finally, another report states that customer retention is 14% higher when big data and analytics solutions are applied to deal with velocity. Okay, so moving on, I just wanted to start with some examples of consumer analytics that have gone wrong. So I have three examples. The first one being a retailer who did not include business to build analytical models. Before this retailer started working with us, they did have some analytical models implemented, but then they were not, really getting anything out of these analytical models that they had. The reason being, they had their own BI Center of Excellence, and this team went ahead and implemented solutions without, having enough conversations with the other business units, and there was a gap between what the company as a strategy, what they had, and their business objectives were not in sync. So this was one of the failure scenarios that we had rectified later on by aligning the business objectives with the company strategy. And the next example that I have is of a telecom provider who missed the social network value. So what happened was, they had churn models and other things implemented, but once, for example, head of the family decided to leave them and move to an operator. So what ideally happened was his daughter, his wife, his sons, everybody moved out. So organizations tend to look at only the individual's profit value that they bring in. So ideally it should be like, they have to take into account people around, the family bonds and other things before building, analytical models, so that they get real insights and then, they get the real value out of such models. Finally, an utility provider that we are currently working with, they have all the churn models in place, but then what they were doing was all the churn models are being run at a monthly intervals, which is fair enough for a churn because churn is a slow process and you have a 30-day window to run the models. But then ideally, all these models, once they are built and they are in production, there should be a constant improvement that has to happen. For example, if there is, there are some churn triggers that happen it should be identified immediately. This utility provider, for example, had many customers who left them immediately because they received a huge amount of bills in a month, and then the churn models had, were scheduled to run at 30-day intervals, and before that happened, these customers already left. So it should all be like, a continuous process where these models are revisited and then, tested. I now hand it over to Adarsh to talk briefly about consumer journey.
Thanks, Jay. So before we delve into the customer analytics or consumer analytics, let us look at some of the challenges faced by the different organizations in the various stages of the customer cycle, life cycle per se. So if you look at the first stage in a consumer life cycle management per se is discovery. So some of the strategies adopted by the companies involve mass campaigns, etc., which leads to huge cost overruns, because the problem with that the organizations face is with respect to reaching the right customer with the right channel of acquisition. So in order to move forward and move the consumer to the prospect to the consumer state, it's very important for the organization to run through some promotions, discounts, etc., which in turn again adds to the costs associated with it. So these are some of the challenges faced by the organization in the customer lifecycle management. Similarly, if you look at the other aspects of consumer lifecycle journey, the companies are interested in identifying the best retention strategies, as retaining a consumer is much cost effective than acquiring a new consumer. So let us look at some of the challenges faced in implementing the analytics before we get deeper into the consumer analytics per se.
Okay. Just to sum up, what Adarsh just spoke about, and some of the previous examples that I gave of consumer analytics having gone wrong. So we have listed some 5 challenges that are typically faced by organizations. The first one being data synergies. So data is always in silos in any organization, right? So they would have custom built their solutions or used various tool sets and applications to over a period of time to store data. So it's very important to have some good integration strategies to bring in all these data. Data is very key for analytics. So how good the data is, how clean and how quality the data is, and then you have equally good analytics coming out of it. The second challenge is business objectives versus the company strategy. The example that I quoted about the retailers having not involved all key business units is a classic example of this. So any organization looking to implement an analytics solution should involve all business stakeholders, and then map or bridge the gap between the strategy that they have, so that both the objectives of the business and the company strategies are in sync. The third challenge is converting insights to action. So typically an organization that is investing in an analytics solution should foster a data-driven decision-making culture in the organization. Otherwise, data from this analytics will again go back to not being used or looked at, and decisions are not made using the analytics outputs. So it's very important to convert insights to actions. Then the next challenge is continuous improvement, which again taking the utility provider example. It's not like analytics model is built once and then you just leave it like that. So over a period of time, the value decreases because data comes in every day, and then the analytical models are data dependent. So you have to revisit the models and keep improving the analytical models as such. Finally, the ROI is again important factor. Measuring that in a typical analytical model is very difficult when you compare it with other IT applications. The reason being, analytics is the entire process is highly exploratory in nature. So it is over a period of time, and how well you implement or use the decisions to the analytical model outputs to make the decisions is what is going to give you more return on your investments. So these are some of the challenges that I wanted to talk about today. So in order to have a successful adoption and then the analytical models for them to give improved top line and bottom line, and for customer experience to drive profitability, and for you to get deeper insights, advanced analytics is the way to go. I'll have Adarsh talk about more in detail about the customer lifecycle analytics.
Thanks, Neil. Okay, so now let us look at the various stages in the customer lifecycle and understand how analytics can add value at different stages. So, for any organization, the first part of the sales cycle is to reach the right consumer or the right prospect with the right medium. So, this could include digital, mass media, or whatever the medium may be. So, it is very important to segment the target audience effectively, which could result in lesser cost associated with marketing campaigns. So the first step is to segment the audiences. For this, analytics can play an important role in identifying and accurately the right segments. Now, once we have the right segments, it's important to understand how each consumer or each prospect or even each segment reacts to a particular campaign. So, by running some analytics like sensitivity analysis on the campaigns, it is able to identify the right medium for a particular consumer or a prospect. Another important aspect which is important in customer acquisition is to understand the kind of customers, prospects who are likely to turn into consumers. So lead scoring can be enhanced by using analytics to improve the efficiency of lead scoring mechanisms which are applied. Another area where analytics can play an important part is to reduce the return of investment. Increase the return of investment with respect to acquisition. This can be done by using some sensitivity analysis on various models, and this will in turn result in cost reduction. Now another important decision aspect of consumer journey is the decision making. So to make a consumer to decide to buy the first product is very critical. So it is important to reach the right consumer or the right prospect with the right product so that he makes the decision. We'll look into how analytics can play an important part a couple of slides later. Now, another important aspect which is very important here is the retention strategies which are applied. So it's very important to identify the right the consumers who are likely to churn. So here, analytics can play an important part in accurately determining the customers who are likely to churn based on his behavior, based on the kind of products he bought, etc., etc. Now, this is just the first step of retaining the consumers. Having identified the consumers who are likely to churn, it becomes more effective if we can identify the consumers whom by retaining will add value to the organization. So, by running CLV analytics, the organization can, to an extent, accurately determine the customer lifetime value associated with each consumer. And based on comparing this customer lifetime value against the total spend which he had already done, we can accurately determine the consumers whom we should target and retain. Another important aspect of customer lifecycle management is to move the consumers towards the advocacy level. To do that, some of the strategies adopted are through some loyalty programs, rewards, offerings, etc., etc. So here, analytics can play an important role by identifying the right loyalty programs to which each consumer will react to. So by based on some running some models, it's able to identify the right programs for every individual consumer. Now we spoke a couple of slides back about the product offerings, which is very critical in converting a prospect into a consumer. So let us look at how we can arrive at the personalized offerings, which are really very relevant to individual consumer. This process starts with the customer segments. Most of the time, the marketing might be having the customer segments with them, but here again, analytics can play an important part in enhancing the customer segments. For example, the segmentation techniques used can actually determine some of the hidden segments or some of the segments which are overlooked by some of the organization. So what we are saying is we can extrapolate the customer segments, and we can dig deeper and find smaller segments which are more relevant, etc. Having identified the right segments, the next step is to identify the associations within the particular segments, but you understand the common behaviors within the segment. Some of the association techniques applied can identify, say, the kind of products bought together in, say, cohort 1. So this would enhance the retailer or the organization to understand the kind of products which are bought together by a particular group of consumers, say millennials, say Gen X, etc. So cohort analysis is actually very significant and an important step in this process. Now, having done all these things, we can take it to the next level by doing associations for individual consumers and identifying the product which are more relevant for a particular organization. Now, this method is much more efficient than directly trying to derive the association from by considering the whole consumer as one go. So this will increase the accuracy and of our predictions.
Okay, just want to add some of my thoughts here, Adarsh. So what we have typically seen is that most organizations do the segmentation, but then they stop at the macro level. What we are proposing our customers to do is, while we implement solutions, is to go for a micro level segmentation, which is like, say, for example, a telecom provider that we are working with, we are segmenting customers by different parameters, like what time of the day are they most receiving calls, or are they more of a receiver than a call maker. And then depending on all these factors, smaller segments that we make, there are opportunities for the marketing team of that telecom provider to reach out with much more focused messages and targeted ads. So just wanted to add that here, Adarsh.
Okay, moving ahead. Now let us consider the product launches, which is a very significant step for any organization, especially in the B2C segment. Let us look at a new product launch. So if you look at, if you consider, say, an iPhone 8, when it is launched, the prices of iPhone 8 is very high. Okay, so they try to attract the premium customers and get maximum revenue out of the consumers. This is a typical strategy adopted by most of the organization in B2C. So when you're launching a product, it's very important to identify the kind of customers who are likely to buy the product and approach them. This is an important place where important aspect of selling, where analytics can play an important part. So propensity models are basically determines the likelihood with which a particular consumer is going to buy a product. By analyzing through the vast amount of data we have, any organization can determine the kind of consumers who are going to buy a new product. And by setting their own benchmark, say I'm setting a probability of 90% or something, the organization can determine the kind of consumers whom they need to target. So this is the first step. Now, Now, how do we improve the decision making of the consumer whom we have identified so that he is going to buy the product? So, typically an organization will run a lot of promotions or discounts or offerings, etc., to achieve this. Now, what lift models does here is to improve upon our propensity models which we have built and see how different promotion strategies, etc. Suppose I have 3 or 4 strategies. We'll run the lift model on the same data set which we have got, and we can identify the most effective promotions for the particular group. And by doing so, we can actually increase the likelihood that the customer is going to buy that particular product. So this is a very important aspect of selling. Okay. Now we have seen 2 dimensions of selling recommendations, okay? Suggesting the right product to the right consumer. Now, if I want to extrapolate to the 3rd dimension, say at the right consumer, the right time, how will you do it? So that is where real-time recommendations can play an important part. Basically, real-time recommendations are achieved through streaming analytics and big data technology. So, but let us look at from the business aspect, how we achieve it, how significant it is for any organization. Let us consider a typical store where, because of the advancement in technologies like beacons, mobiles, etc., we have the retailer has wide variety of data with respect to the kind of consumers coming in, the path taken by the consumers, the time he spent on particular area, etc., etc. So, by analyzing this data, the retailers can, and analyzing the customer path and determining the high intensity path, the retailer can identify the kind of product which need to be placed. So this would help in improving the product placement within a store. This can be extrapolated to say a retail bank, etc., and can be achieved. Another important aspect is the proximity-based marketing campaigns or recommendations. So if the consumer is having a mobile app or something, right? So, and if you are subscribed to your app, it is easy for the organization to suggest, say, suppose I'm visiting a fruit aisle, and the analytics have determined that I'm likely to buy oranges. So when I reach that aisle, I'll get recommendations on buying oranges. So these are some of the examples where the real-time recommendations can enhance and push the consumer towards buying a particular product. So these are some of the techniques where analytics can play a very important part. I'll hand over to Veena, who will take you through some of the questions which have been raised.
Thank you, Adarsh, and thank you, Jaikant. I hope our listeners are curious, and yeah, we do see a lot of questions here. So without wasting any further time, let's take up some of the questions. So the first one that I see is, does the maturity of consumer analytics adoption vary by industry? Jaikantan, would you like to answer that, please?
Yeah, sure, Veena. That's a interesting question. The answer is yes, there is a difference, but then it's a question of more of application rather than maturity. How you, what techniques that you apply or what you do with the data is more important here. For example, take for example financial services, or even better healthcare, where data is highly regulated by stringent policies. So you have to work within the boundaries, and then you have to generate certain analytics, and at the same time not be too intrusive. So that's the key there. Whereas in comparison, retail is less standardized. So there is no question of having any stringent policies that restrict you from using the data. Interest from a retail standpoint would be more towards understanding and knowing customer behavior patterns, and how long would a customer stick with you and do business and things like that. So the data is not always well captured in retail because it is not regulated like how it is in healthcare or financial services. and every company's style of interacting with the customers also differs. So I think that's the difference there in terms of adoption.
Great. Let's go on to the next question. What I see is, yes, our organization is struggling to identify first steps in building our analytics program. Any thoughts? So, Jaikant, once again.
Yeah, I'll take that. Yep. Okay. So it all depends on how much of an investment you are ready to make. Is the analytics something that is a necessity right now, or is it more of a long-term future project? For example, a financial services company, they find analytics as an immediate necessity, whereas for some companies, or based on their business goals, it may not be the immediate necessity, but they would like to have that as part of their future plans. The other questions like what is the driver of your analytics investment today? Is that need driven more by desire for information, or is it because you're trying to mitigate certain business risks that you're foreseeing? And again, what kind of investment is required? This is more in terms of bringing the right skill sets, and analytics is a different ball game altogether. So you need to have people with different skill sets. People like data analysts, data scientists are different from your normal IT folks that you would have. So it should be like they are a mix of theoretical and practical experience, and practitioners is extremely important. So it all depends on the amount of investment that your organization is ready to make, and make the analytics more of a data-driven decision-making culture. So from experience, I've seen organizations typically investing in a tool and then explore what needs to be done with it. This has to be avoided, and then you have to look at the business need and the operational design, and then involve the right stakeholders and get sponsorship, and then jump on to building analytical models. So that's my take on it.
Thank you, Jaikant. That brings us to the end of the webinar. We thank you all on behalf of Aspire Systems for joining us today. Have a great day ahead.